It's always a controversial topic to discuss whether video games are getting worse or not. Some people believe that the industry is constantly improving and evolving, while others argue that the quality of the games has declined over time. In this video, we'll be exploring some of the reasons why some people think video games are getting worse, and while we're here, we'll also consider some of the counter-arguments too. One reason why some people believe that video games are getting worse is because of the increase in focus on microtransactions and in-game purchases. Many games now offer players the option to spend real money to unlock new items or to progress faster in the game. While this can be a lucrative business model for game developers, it can also lead to a feeling of gamers feeling cheated after spending their hard-earned cash on a game. Some argue that this emphasis on microtransactions has led to a decline in the overall quality of games, as developers are more focused on making money rather than delivering a great gaming experience. Another reason why some people think video games are getting worse is because of the rise of loot box systems. These are virtual containers that can be purchased with real money or in-game currency, and they contain randomized items such as in-game currency, character skins, and other virtual items. Many people view loot boxes as a form of gambling, as players never know exactly what they'll get when they purchase one. This can lead to a feeling of frustration and disappointment for players, especially if they spend a lot of money on loot boxes without getting the items that they want. Microtransactions are often criticised because they can lead to a pay-to-win dynamic in games. This occurs when players who spend more money on microtransactions have an advantage over players who don't. This can create an unlevel playing field and make the game less enjoyable for players who don't want to spend their money. In addition, some people argue that microtransactions can lead to a decline in the overall quality of games. If developers are relying on microtransactions to generate revenue, they may be less incentivized to create a high-quality product. Instead, they may focus on designing the game to encourage players to spend more money on those microtransactions. I'm looking at you, Overwatch. Games just don't seem to release with the same polish they used to have back in my day. God, I feel old saying that. But it's true. We as a community have begun to accept that games will be released unfinished and everything will be okay because there'll be patches that fix the game in months to come. I get it. Developers want to generate buzz and excitement around the game. By releasing a game in an early access state, developers can get players excited about the game and create a sense of anticipation for the final release. This can also help to generate revenue for the developers, as players may be willing to pay for access to the early version of the game. Look, that's fine. But when it starts to feel like games are being released in their beta state at full price, that's when it becomes an issue. All you have to do is look at the recent releases of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and Cyberpunk 2077. Both games were plagued with bugs and heavily criticised. Yes, they both have released patches that have addressed and fixed most of the issues, but what happened to the days of picking a game up on day one and being fully immersed in the experience? Seems like that's quite a rarity these days. Is it worth the pressure we put the game developers under to release an unfinished game? Should we be charged full price on day one for a game that's not finished? Battle Royale modes have been both a blessing and a curse to the gaming industry. Hey, don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of Warzone and Apex probably being two of my most played games this year, but there are some major flaws. One reason is that they can lead to a lack of innovation in the gaming industry. Battle Royale games, which involve a large number of players fighting to be the last one standing, have become extremely popular in recent years. As a result, many game devs have started to include Battle Royale modes in their games, even if they don't necessarily fit the core gameplay mechanics. This can lead to a feeling of copycat games and a lack of originality in the industry as a whole. Another reason why some people believe that Battle Royale modes are bad for gaming is that they can be toxic and unbalanced. Many Battle Royale games have a high skill ceiling, and it can be difficult for new or inexperienced players to compete against more seasoned players. Hey, I'm learning mouse and keyboard at the age of 30 trying to play Valorant. I know this feeling. This can lead to a feeling of frustration and discouragement for new players, and it can also lead to a toxic community if more experienced players are overly competitive or unkind to less skilled players. Some people even argue that Battle Royale modes are bad for gaming because they can be highly addictive. The fast-paced, high-stakes gameplay of Battle Royale games can be extremely compelling, and it's not uncommon for players to spend long periods of time playing these types of games. This can lead to negative consequences, such as neglecting other responsibilities or developing unhealthy gaming habits. I mean, there's even a mother suing Epic Games for Fortnite being majorly addicted to her son. A bit over the top if you ask me, but each to their own. Community feedback has always been a controversial topic in gaming, and I can understand why. On one hand, you kind of want to listen to the opinion of the people you are specifically making the game for, but on the other hand, are the loudest voices necessarily speaking on behalf of the masses? Developers may not simply have the resources or time to implement all of the changes that players request. Game development is a time-consuming and expensive process, and developers may not have the bandwidth to address every single piece of feedback that they receive. But to me, at a bare minimum, I feel like they should at least be acknowledged and addressed, even if they're not implemented. standard. The recent release of Modern Warfare 2 was the perfect example of community feedback being ignored. The game was heavily marketed, and with open betas and streams of the game pre-release, fans got a taste of what was in store for them on release day. And many criticised the game, ranging from the map dynamics causing players to camp, the removal of shots appearing on the minimap, and the sudden disappearance of footsteps audio. Sorry, Dr. Disrespect.
No audio! Your game sucks!
But ultimately, these issues were just swept under the rug. There needs to be a balance of devs not addressing every minor concern, but when a beta is put out for the community feedback for it then to be ignored, there needs to be a level of accountability. It's worth noting that not everyone agrees that video games are getting worse. Some argue that the industry has actually improved significantly in recent years, with bigger budgets, better graphics, and more immersive gameplay experiences. In addition, the rise of independent game developers has led to a wide variety of games on the market, offering players more choice and diversity. And to an extent, I can agree with this. But what I can't agree with is consistent delays that then lead to a game being released unfinished. Tell us a date, delay it, that's absolutely fine. But the game needs to be released as a finished product if you are going to delay the game. Ultimately, whether video games are getting worse or not is a matter of personal opinion. While it's true that some aspects of the industry may be less appealing to some people, there are still plenty of great games being released that offer players a great gaming experience. And speaking of great games to look forward to, why not check out this video where we discuss everything you need to know about the upcoming Hades 2 release.